I'm Ryan Newman, and since I started with Indiana Donor Network and Driven to Save Lives, I found out that some people think that they can't be an organ donor. The truth is, anyone can sign up to be an organ donor.
Anyone?
Anyone?
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. Anyone can sign up to be an organ donor. So don't count yourself out because somebody's counting on you. Go to driventosavelives.org and sign up today.
But my heart's going to you, Ryan.
Love that shirt.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another night of iRacing action here on the National Racing Network, where tonight it will be the stars and cars of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship coming to you from Sebring Raceway, Sebring, Florida. My name is Chris Graham, joined in the booth, as always, by Mr. James Watson. And I tell you what, James, it seems like every time we come here, the racing is fantastic. And quite frankly, I don't think we would expect anything different of this place here tonight.
Yeah, it's one of the draft tracks that's kind of a hallmark of this series. Like, there's so many long stretches. Well, not long for cars that normally are built for this place, but for this car, there is. Like, you have pretty much the entirety past the hairpin, or more so the tower turn, where it's just complete full throttle draft. So it tends to bunch everyone up. We usually get a huge battle for the lead. We've seen incredible moments from this place multiple times in prior seasons.
Yeah, and as we're following along here with Everett Paddock, saw Giancarlo Schooler have a little bit of an off track there. He's carrying the number 1 plate here tonight. Everett Paddock, the 2. Your points leader, Alexander Wesley Hazelworth, will be vehicle number 3 here this evening. Hazelworth entering the night with a 7-point lead over Liam Loisel. Brian Labarge sitting 3rd place in points on 285. Mobin Khan and Joseph Heath will complete the top 5. Little bit deceiving on some of these numbers, though, because we do have a handful of drivers that have already run races this week. You look at Mobin Khan, he only has 2 starts on the season, and one of those is a win. He's going to pick up a bunch of points here tonight. Same thing for Everett Paddock, only his 2nd start of the season. He also has a broadcast win and a pole to his credit, for that matter. So we'll see what Paddock and Mobin Khan are able to do here tonight, and it will shuffle the points, James.
Yeah, this whole season in general is going to be interesting because Dave Porcelli messaged me, and he's basically going to be on IR for a good portion of the season. So the championship may well be up for grabs with the reigning champion sidelined.
It's a tough break to hear that for David. And then plus, we're not going to have Ted Burns. He's out at the Rennsport reunion this week at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. Don't have Carter Lundy. He has not been as active in the league in the series this season either. So we could see a new name. But at the same time, we could see a guy like Everett Paddock, Alexander Wesley Hazelworth, some of these guys that have been quick in the past. It's almost like just the next rung, next man up, so to speak, to use the football parlance. It's not like things get any easier for guys like Liam Loisel, Brian Labarge, who are trying to make that move from the mid-pack into the upper tier. You still have a lot of really good race cars you have to get past.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that the series is devoid of talent, that's for sure. We still have a whole heck of a lot of killers, and we have new people that might be joining the ranks of killers that may have not factored in prior seasons, like Mobin Khan. Like, he is legitimately a championship threat, and like 3 seasons ago, he was barely even running the series. So it's interesting to see how this season unfolds.
Yeah, well, and quite frankly, going to be interesting to see how the race unfolds, too, as Everett Paddock goes quick time, 1 minute 54.832. Alexander Wesley Hazelworth, second quick. He's going to be about 6.5 tenths back of Paddock after lap number 1. Carl Lemkuhl, Brian Labarge, and Rod Eskew complete the top 5. As it stands right now, Liam Loisel and Mobin Khan not yet out on the racetrack. With 3 minutes and change left, these guys are going to have to get out onto the speedway here pretty quickly because you got to be complete the lap before the clock expires, or at least really, really close to completing the lap when we hit zeros. And with 1 minute and 55 seconds just to get off of pit lane and around the racetrack, I don't even know that there is enough time for Liam Loisel or Mobin Khan to get a lap in.
Yeah.
Actually,
the
same
lap
for
time,
Giancarlo Schooler as well.
Yeah, you can't dilly-dally. This track is way too big.
Both Schooler and Mobin Khan are showing 1 lap as having been completed. So they got across the start-finish line on the out lap. Have an issue, take it off track, all of a sudden you're going to have to come from the back of the field. However, with 13 cars in this split, we did split tonight, so 25, 26 cars on the entry list. With 13 in the show here tonight, it's not going to be as difficult. If we had a full 24-car split, I would say really, really tough to get yourself up through the field. If you're only coming from row number 6, you're going to have a shot. Let's see what Paddock can do here. Out of Sunset Bend, onto the front straightaway, and under the checkered flag, lap number 2 for Everett Paddock will be 1 minute 54.559. Shaves a full 0.4 of a second off. He is now almost a full second up on Alexander Wesley Hazelworth. Giancarlo Schooler is able to get a lap in the books. He will qualify 4th, 155.499. And Schooler is working lap number 2 here with 1 minute and 30 seconds remaining in the session. Brian Molitor will not get a lap in the books. He has 2 up on the scoreboard, neither of which will score. Frank Wynn making his triumphant return to the series. 1 minute 55.193. Frankie up to 3rd.
Yeah, it's nice to see Frank back. I know he was having some wheel issues, and like he's essentially one of the OGs of the car. So I know we all miss seeing him on track. So happy to see him back. Going back to your earlier point, yeah, there's not as many cars this time around, but with it being a draft track, this isn't exactly a track you want to try to go last to first, because if you lose the draft, well, that might just be race over. Like, this isn't a more driver-based track like in Oulton Park. Like, you can't afford to lose the draft, because unless you're like obscenely quicker than everyone else, you're gonna be SOL, because you're not gonna be obscenely quicker than Everett Paddock or Mobin Khan. Not to the point you need to be able to make up the draft loss.
Well, how about it? Brian Molitor did get out on the racetrack, and he got a lap in. It's going to be good for 3rd quick, just in the nick of time. Giancarlo Schooler completes lap number 2, going to put him up into position number 5. Qualifications are done. It is time to go racing here at Sebring. Round number 3 of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship for 2023 Season 4. Will already be at the quarter post in this season by the time we get done here tonight, which is, quite frankly, just absolute insanity. But field's getting lined up on pit road. Let's see. There we go. Get you a nice wide shot, and let's show you tonight's starting grid. Starting on the pole with a lap time of 1 minute 54.560 seconds will be the TNT Racing number 2 of Everett Paddock. Lining up to his outside, just a tick over, a quarter of a second back, will be the number 3 of the law firm, Alexander Wesley Hazelworth. Row number 2 tonight will have the number 4 of Brian Molitor. lining up alongside of the number 4 of Frank Wynn. Row 3, the Help Ukraine Team Watson Racing number 1 of Giancarlo Schooler, lining up alongside of the Downforce Racing number 7 belonging to Carl Lemkool. Row number 4 tonight, the Citizens Climate Lobby number 12 of Mike Holler will line up alongside of the number 6 of Australia's Darren Fahey. Row number 5, the Homestead Coffee Tales from Rjukan Schaefer Oil number 13 of West Shire, alongside of that stunningly beautiful Philadelphia Flyers number 10 of Rod Eskew. Row number 6 will be the number 9 of Brian Labarge, that NASA meatball, starting a little bit further back than Brian probably would have desired, but he'll be lined up alongside of the number 5 of Liam Loisel. All alone on the final row of the grid will be the Dr. Dauber, number 11 of Mobin Khan. He will roll off tonight from the 13th position. So we'll bring the track map back up here as these guys make their way off into turn number 1. Place is blindingly fast, but yet at times really tricky, James. You get down, you make your way kind of through Gurney towards the hairpin, and then you're making the run right back up again through Fangio off to Cunningham. It seems like every time you slow down, you pick speed back up again. Through Collar Curve, Tower Turn, and then you're right back through the straightaway into Bishop, and then all the way down towards the Le Mans Curve, back onto the airport runways, off onto Sunset. It's like I said, it kind of seems like you slow down and you are just immediately fast again.
Yeah, you hear in a lot of motorsport, you hear a lot about balance, trying to get the balance right. This is such a difficult track to find the balance because you have all these long, fast corners, you have all these long, fast straights, but then you have these tight chicanes, these tough braking zones. And the track is bumpy as hell, like seriously bumpy. So you also have to factor that into the setup as well. That's the crazy thing, is that it just takes so much to set this car up correctly, and it's a driver's track, even with how much draft is factored into it. That's what's incredible about this place.
Yeah, and quite frankly, as you're looking to set this car up, you're kind of stuck between a single click of downforce can be the difference between having enough speed at the end of the straights and having too much downforce. It really is tight in how you have to get these cars set up, and quite frankly, you have to use some of the community resources that are available.
Yeah, like you can't go minimum downforce to deal with all the straights because you need to keep some sort of grip in for, turn 3 all the way up into the hairpin. And you need to keep the ride heights kind of high so it can handle the bumps and you're not completely bottoming out through the entirety of the circuit, which also lowers your downforce level. So, yeah, setup builders certainly earn their money at this place.
See the big wide arc there for Everett Paddock onto this back straightaway. One of the fastest parts of the racetrack and a great opportunity to make a pass as they'll make the run down in towards Sunset Bend. A place that we've seen passes made in the past, but it doesn't mean it's a smart thing to attempt. And quite frankly, huge risk reward, and if you don't get it right, you could find yourself losing 2 or 3 spots by the time you get to the start-finish line.
Yeah, but it also ends up for great finishes because it's the last passing zone you have, and arguably it's the best passing zone you have.
Yes, it is. Field is through that Sunset Bend, 2x2, ready to go. Under the control of Everett Paddock. Green flag goes in the air. We are underway. Big move by Giancarlo Schooler.
Oh, boy.
Oh, they're 3 wide, 2 rows deep down towards turn number 1.
Oh, dear.
4 wide through turn 1.
Woo.
Oh, my goodness. The fight for the lead is a good one still, too. Paddock and Hazelworth side by side. Paddock able to clear. Now Hazelworth going to have to deal with Schooler. Wow, that was touchy. One of those places you watch the sports cars and say you can't go side by side through there. Put some rings on these cars, you can absolutely go side by side through the S's.
Well, it does help that these cars are also significantly
one car
less
going
wider
around,
than
that's
the
Carl
prototypes.
Oh, nice recovery by Carl, but there it is. You talked about it, James. But you lose the draft, and all of a sudden you could be in big-time trouble. He is going to have to hustle to get caught back up to West Shire.
Yeah, but great damage control on not losing more time. Like, that was pretty slick, honestly.
So Everett Paddock out to a 1 second lead over Giancarlo Schooler. The Schooler's going to have to contend with Hazelworth, Molitor, and Frank Wynn as Molitor comes around Hazelworth. "13 laps the distance on this one, and lap number 1 is in the books, and it will belong to the number 2 of Everett Paddock." Let's take a look and go on board here with Alexander Wesley Hazelworth. He's got cars on all sides of him here. And that's the tough thing, James, is you're looking this way out the front, trying to attack on Brian Molitor, but you got to be cognizant of what's behind you. Frank Wynn, Liam Loisel, Mike Holler are all right there.
Yeah, talk about having eyes in the back of your head. Like, it's difficult because you can't put full focus into attacking the car ahead, because if you try to make a move and it doesn't quite work out, you open yourself up to getting freight trained. There's a lot of places on this track where you can get freight trained. You let one car by, another car is going to slip through, because in some areas it's just hard to mount a defense. Now obviously we saw them go too wide in a couple places where you don't typically see it too wide. So it's not as much of a problem in these cars, but it's definitely something that you have to worry about.
Well, Everett Paddock is now out to a 1.8 second lead over Giancarlo Schooler, and that lead continues to grow. A little bit surprising here, I would think, for Everett Paddock, because you kind of mentally prep yourself for this as a draft track. You're going to be in a pack race the whole time. Then all of a sudden you're hot lapping all by yourself out front.
Yeah, that's the downside to draft tracks, is that if you're not in the draft, then it's the most boring race imaginable. This is anything but boring, though.
Yeah, Schooler takes the inside line away from Brian Molitor. May set himself up for the cross down the front straightaway, though. As Molitor gets a great exit out of Sunset. He'll take full advantage of the draft, looks outside down towards turn 1 as Everett Paddock goes new fastest lap of the race. Seeing Mobin Khan just coming out of the pit lane.
Yeah, that's what happens when you don't have a qualifying that's up to your expectations. It's usually one of those when it rains, it pours scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, this one, Mobin entering the night about 50 points or so back, 60 points back of the championship lead. Even with it only being a 13-car field, this still likely ends up becoming a drop week. The strength of field on this one is a 36-28. That's really strong. Speaking of strong, 3 wide, Brian Molitor, Giancarlo Schooler, and Alexander Wesley Hazelworth. Oh my goodness.
Man.
Liam Loisel right in the middle of this battle as well. What a fantastic show. there's a little bit of what you talked about, James, with getting Freight Train. Alexander Wesley Hazelworth was third, now back to the 5th position. You kind of just get caught out, you lose a little momentum, and all of a sudden you're having to really fight from losing 2 or 3 positions.
The worst thing in racing when you're getting Freight Train, just the most helpless feeling. And it's also when you feel the most violent, because as every passing car that goes by, you're heavily considering, okay, if I turn right and hook that car into the wall, I might have room now.
Yeah, we were almost seeing cars getting hooked into the wall. Giancarlo Schooler, Brian Molitor. Good Lord, that was Kyle Busch levels of blocking. And attacking, for that matter, crisscrossing from one side of the racing surface to the other. Both of those cars doing it. But now this battling has really made it where all the way back to 11th place West Shire is in one solid line. You barely see Everett Paddock disappearing into the sunset. Oh, great pass on the inside by Molitor. They're still 2x2. Oh man, Liam Loisel absolutely stuffs the nose in on Alexander Wesley Hazelworth. What a move there. Frank Wynn, Brian Molitor now trying to chase down Hazelworth as Schooler and Loisel able to open up the gap a little bit. Brian Molitor, Mike Holler doing the battle now. I'll tell you what, this is a ton of fun watching these cars go kind of front to back the way they are. And then as soon as you see the guys pull out, like Liam Loisel just did on Giancarlo Schooler, it just makes that pull, that pocket of air that drags everybody up so much bigger. And quite frankly, where the two guys that were setting off into the sunset now are contending with, we're letting these guys catch back up to us.
Yeah, when there's a battle on track, there's no happier person to see that than the person a little bit behind the battle, because that means that's free distance that you're catching up without having to really do anything.
And to give you an idea of what the battle is costing these guys, Everett Paddock's last lap was a new fastest lap of the race at a 1 minute 55.207. Last lap for second place, Giancarlo Schooler, 157 flat, a full 2 seconds slower than what Everett Paddock is doing at the front of the field.
Yeah, let me revise something I said earlier on. Being all by yourself in a draft track is the worst race imaginable, except if you are the leader and you are all by yourself. Then it is the greatest race you will ever be in. There is no greater joy than being all by yourself in a draft race with a huge gap to everyone behind.
Yeah, you basically don't have to fight anybody, which is quite nice, but I would imagine also, especially at a place like Sebring, it's almost difficult to keep your concentration and that high level of focus because you're used to having to be battling with somebody. This is not a place that you normally are just going to kind of turn laps and hot lap.
Yeah, but on the flip side, it's not a track that you can kind of relax anyways. You know, there isn't really an easy corner on this track. So that kind of helps because you have some level of focus just keeping the car on track. You know, it's not like Spa or Monza. I'd say you're in danger of dealing with that with their Sebring. No, not even close. Oh my
Wow.
Lord. What a view.
Wow. Hazelworth, 2 for 1. Thank you, sir. May I have another? Can he get them past, though? Only gets the first one. And Giancarlo Schooler able to fight back. Now here comes Brian Molitor.
He gained approximately nothing, but it looked cool.
Yes, it did. That's one of the neater shots we've had here.
Perfect timing too, honestly.
My goodness, what a show these guys are putting on with 8 laps to go here at Sebring. On board now with Liam Loisel running in second. Giancarlo Schooler absolutely all over the rear attenuator of that car. Oh, they almost touch.
Oh.
What net code? Oh, sliding the cars through the corners too. Oh, and here comes Hazelworth. Oh my goodness. What an... Oh, and Mike Holler goes around. Holler does the 360, grabs a gear and takes off. He's just going to fall right back into line.
Yeah, it really didn't affect him too much. I mean, he lost positions, but it looks like he's still in the draft. When does that ever happen?
Yeah, right now the gap is about 1 second between 7th place Darren Fahey and 8th place Rod Eskew. It's marginal if they're going to be able to keep the draft. But with how these cars are spaced out, kind of from Hazelworth on back, that can kind of help the guys a little bit. It almost like it opens the draft range a little bit because the guys in front still have it, but they're falling back to you at the same time.
Yeah, basically kind of doing two things at once here. It's kind of what you have to hope to have happen in races like these every once in a while.
The lead for Everett Paddock is now almost 10 seconds. Never would I have thought we would have seen a runaway like this tonight. That's a Greg Seitz level of performance to call back to a guy who has been incredibly dominant in these cars. Well, I will say many moons ago at this point, but it almost feels like this, like they're activating DRS here, but no drag reduction system on these cars as Molitor looks inside, outside, inside.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, that's typically not a corner you want to think about going 3 wide in, because the bumps on the inside on Sunset, in my opinion, are the worst you'll come across in the entire circuit. So if you try to send it too close to the inside, she will bump and she will slide up just a little bit. And if room is at a premium, it might not end well for all the parties involved.
Oh, man, everybody doing a little bit of Luke Bryan out here, too, kicking dust up. Liam Loisel, Giancarlo Schooler. Oh, almost side by side into the chicane. Here comes Schooler once again.
Oh.
Go on board with Brian Molitor as he tries to look for an opening somewhere, anywhere. And that really is an art form, being able to identify when you actually need to make the move. Molitor had carried a lot more speed into the corner there than did Liam Loisel, but it's not the right place to make the move. It's almost like, oh man, as both cars get off track ahead of him, Molitor now is going to see an opening. The question is, where does he decide to go with it?
Yeah, that's what good racecraft is, knowing how to make the move and when to make the move. And that was some incredible racecraft being demonstrated right there. It takes so much discipline not to just go if gap car, which as we've seen, not necessarily in this series, but in all of our times on the service, that doesn't usually happen often.
Yeah, my goodness, is this fun. And quite frankly, the battling has brought Frank Wynn and Darren Fahey back into this party, too. So now it's going to be 2nd through 7th, all running nose to tail. 6 cars in the line, but they're not going to stay that way for long. Hazelworth ducks out a little bit to cover the move from Frank Wynn. IndyCar to Sebring full, please. Soon.
Please. You thought Belle Isle was bumpy.
Yeah, really. Take a look here. Mike Holler battling with Rod Eskew and Carl Lemkool. This is going to be 9th, 10th, and 11th. These guys are fighting just as hard. Wes Shire kind of serving as the gap filler there in the 8th position. Now the question becomes, with 5 to go here, James, do you hit a point where you sort of have to settle in for a lap or two and try to plan what the maneuver's going to be? Or do you kind of just have to keep reacting at this point?
Well, that's the thing, is that you want to, but you may not necessarily have the luxury, because if you stand pat and kind of wait for an opportunity to strike, you might suffer a sneak attack from the car behind. And then they get to have the opportunity to make their plan of when to make their move. So, it's a risk versus reward. And with no one really waiting to make any moves, I don't think it's something you can risk.
Well, we're going to find out here as we're down to 4 to go. Everett Paddock just set another new fastest lap of the race. Oh, as 8-1 car goes around, that's the 5 of Liam Loisel. Big hit to Alexander Wesley Hazelworth as well.
Well, that's going to spice things up.
Hazelworth absolutely drilled him. Take a look at it here on the instant replay.
Ooh.
Car just got a little twitchy, and yeah, that was a huge hit. I don't know how Hazelworth still has a front wing, quite frankly.
Right? Front nose cone, front suspension.
Yeah, brake master cylinder, that's where that lives. In the front end of these cars as well.
Yeah.
You would think that would be meatball end of day, but apparently not. The netcode god's smiling down on Alexander Wesley Hazelworth. But that has completely changed the complexion of the battle at the front. Giancarlo Schooler, Brian Molitor have now separated themselves by about 2 seconds ahead of 4th place Frank Wynn.
Yeah, now if you're Molitor, you're kind of in the captain's seat now, because you can do basically anything you want now. There's not a whole lot that Giancarlo can do to try to defend against that.
Everett Paddock just took another 0.3 of a second off the fastest lap of the race, down to a 1:54.885. Monster lap for Everett Paddock. Here comes Molitor having to look. Oh. And quite frankly, James, I think this is where you sort of have to be careful if you're Schooler and Molitor. You don't want to let Darren Fahey back into this fight. it's sitting, the gap's still sitting right about 2 seconds. At this point, if you're Fahey, you also do have to still contend with Frank Wynn.
Yeah, they're not really at risk of letting them back in. It's going to take a heck of a lot harder battling for them to be at risk of that. They're still just a smidge too far out, honestly.
Yeah, and with 3 laps to go, it's going to take possibly even some contact or an off track for that to happen. As we'll follow now for a moment here with Lemcool, Holler, and Eskew, as Everett Paddock again goes fast this lap. This time just taking a couple of hundredths off of it, down to a 154.846. Two laps to go here at Sebring. Oh, Hazelworth slides way off the racetrack at turn 2. Quickly back onto the tarmac, but going to give up a fair bit of time to Frank Wynn. Molitor, big look up the inside. He'll get the pass completed on Schooler. It's kind of slowed both of them down a little bit into the chicane as well. This is exactly what Darren Fahey wants to see. The gap is now 1.3.
If they stay side by side through this entire section, then they're going to catch up.
But Fahey and Wynn both go around. Frank Wynn's off the racetrack. Fahey now going to have to contend with Alexander Wesley Hazelworth. Fahey didn't get all the way around. He just snapped the back end loose in a big old tank slapper.
Yeah, it was a nice save. Unfortunately, Frank was not so fortunate.
And the gap is down to 1.1 seconds, too. Schooler's down below the yellow line. He's on the apron of the straightaway. Molitor going to have the look to the outside. Now he swings wide as the white flag flies over Everett Paddock. 1 lap to go.
Crossover. Oh, beautiful.
At the line, it was Schooler by 2/1000ths of a second. Fahey trying to hold off Hazelworth. What an incredible fight here between Giancarlo Schooler and Brian Molitor. These guys have been tooth and nail for the last 8 laps. There's your race leader. He go.
Whoa.
Does Molitor try the crossover again? The lead is almost 17 seconds for Everett Paddock. Off the final corner, we'll pick him up here. Checkered flag in the air. Everett Paddock gets the win at Sebring. And we're going to get a great look at the battle into the final corner. Schooler, Molitor, both cars swing a little bit wide. That may be all she wrote. Molitor going to try the run down to the inside. At the flag, Giancarlo Schooler going to come home second. Brian Molitor third. Darren Fahey only 7/10 back of Molitor for that final podium position. And Alexander Wesley Hazelworth will round out the top 5. And the race leader has already gotten the car stopped, parked, done. I'm out of here. What a performance tonight by Everett Paddock. Let's show you the race results. I did not see those numbers coming tonight. Paddock over Schooler by 16.9 seconds. Nice run for Everett Paddock. Brian Molitor rounds out the podium. Darren Fahey and Alexander Wesley Hazelworth complete the top 5. 6 through 10, Carl Lemkool, Mike Holler, Rod Eskew, Brian Lamarge, and Frank Wynn. On to page number 2 of the leaderboard, Wes Shire and Liam Loisel. And the only car out of the race here tonight is the number 11 of Mobin Khan. He went out early on lap number 2. We'll get our, let's see. Got to find our white flag here. There it is. All right, let's pick up our race winner here tonight. Well, let's see if we're going to get anybody to even pop into the booth for the interview. But, man, I'll tell you what, James, as we wait for these guys to come in and say hi to us, I don't know that we can really actually talk about what Everett Paddock did here with enough superlatives, because it's the equivalent of doing this at Spa, Watkins Glen, those kinds of places where we go, we know what we're going to get. It's going to be a draft fest, and it's going to be 2 and 3 wide all over the place. That's not the case with what Everett Paddock did here tonight. Just absolutely incredible. In fact, Ted Burns getting the comment in a couple of minutes ago. Great race for second. Way to go, Everett. That was 12 minutes ago. The race wasn't even like 2/3 over yet, and Teddy B's getting that comment in. But it really was impressive what we saw out of Everett Paddock here tonight.
It's like Max Verstappen, like we barely showed him at all, like the entire race. The only interesting bit was a couple of battles behind him. Like, it was an absolute demolition that we're not used to seeing. Like, this is an opportunity for him to put up some serious numbers en route to the championship. Like, you need to step up in a time like this, and he stepped up, putting it mildly.
Yeah, and we're going to bring Everett into the booth with us here. First off, let me just say congratulations. That was, at one point, I called it a Greg Seitz-esque kind of performance out of you tonight. Congratulations. The car was obviously on rails, setting monster fast laps even late in the race. Congratulations on the win, and talk us through a little bit from your driver's seat.
Yeah, thanks. That's quite the compliment. Greg Seitz-esque. I like that. Yeah, it was, got kind of a crappy start. I wanted to start late, but I wanted to start at the green flag. Didn't get a great start, but managed to get the lead by down and through those first couple turns, and then those guys back there were just fighting like, oh my gosh, I was like hammer and tongs, Donnybrook, whatever you want to call it. They were going at it.
And quite frankly, we didn't get to show that pretty number 2 TNT racing machine a whole lot because the racing was so good behind you. But I would imagine in some respects, it has to be a little bit fun because Sebring is a place that you go to and say, okay, I'm going to be battling, it's going to be crazy. And instead, you just got to hot lap this place for about a half hour or so.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I'm like, it is more fun to race, right? It's more fun to be in it. But I tell you what, I was like, I think every now and then the racing gods owe you one. I think maybe I'll chalk this one up to that.
Well, congratulations on it. It was a huge win, and like James said, a big points night too. With us getting the split and a 36-28 strength of field, going to be a very, very good number for you here, Everett. Congratulations on your second win of the season. Back-to-back wins, actually, if I remember correctly. Congratulations on it, and before we let you go here, make sure you do all the big sponsor plugs and thank yous.
Yeah, thanks to you guys for the great broadcast. Again, appreciate everyone racing. Looked like it was pretty clean racing most of the way through the field, so I think that's cool. And shout out to my TNT teammates and the Downforce guys, too. Take care.
All right,
Have
brother.
a great weekend.
Thanks, Everett. We appreciate it. Yeah, you too. And I don't know that we're going to get Giancarlo Schooler. If I remember correctly, actually, English may not even be a language that he speaks. So,
I can confirm that it is. He's from Maryland.
Oh, okay. So I'm thinking of somebody else then.
Correct.
But either way, I don't know that we have Giancarlo in the Discord server that we can talk to. Actually, same goes for Brian Molitor too. I don't know if we have Brian to talk to either. But man, as we get ready to wrap this one up, James, you hit the nail on the head, talking about how impressive of a drive this was from Everett Paddock. But we got to go back to this battle for second because it was a hammer and nails, whatever other metaphors that we want to use. That was
a slugfest.
Incredible.
Yeah, that was a race-long slugfest of titanic proportions. Just neither combatant giving an inch. Like, that's what you love from that's racing right there, when you're just going counterpunch after counterpunch, no dirtiness, no argy-bargy, no anything, just incredible racing from top to bottom.
Yeah, it was an absolutely fantastic show that we got out of these guys. Just absolute insanity. And we're going to get more of it next week because we head off to Gateway. First oval week of the season here on week number 4. That one is going to be, quite frankly, an incredible show. James will be the in-car reporter on that one. But first, we got to kick things off.
Unfortunately, I will not. I will be in the booth for that one.
Oh, that's a shame. Either way, kick things off next week. Silver Crowns at Milwaukee. That one will kick off at 9:45 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Looking forward to that show. Crowns on flat tracks can be interesting to say the least. A little bit of what we saw at North Wilkesboro, we may get to see next week with the Crowns at Milwaukee. TNT Shock Series is off because it's oval week for the PM18, so all those guys will be getting ready for Gateway. Also, the Sim Racers Club is off next week as well. They will return on Wednesday, October 11th with a visit to the Bristol Motor Speedway. So only Monday, Thursday next week, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday next week, we will be up at New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the INEX Legends Road Course World Championships. You can find that one on pitroad.tv. I am really looking forward to that. The Legends through the bowl at Turn 5. They run the full road course. I cannot wait for that show. Also coming up this weekend, the NRN crew will be at Airport Speedway down in Newcastle, Delaware for their championship weekend festivities. You can catch that one on dirt2media.tv. We're looking forward to bringing you all the action on that one. The absolutely fantastic Casey Kreider will be on the call for that one, the voice of Hyper Racing 600 Speed Week. Yours truly will be pushing the buttons and doing the producing, directing roles. We'll have Bizzle running replay. Whole bunch of cameras. Looking forward to that one. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic show. But with that, it is time for us to get the heck on out of here. A great show as always out of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship. We're looking forward to seeing you all next week, whether it's Monday night with the Crowns here on NRN, this weekend on dirt2media.tv, or next Thursday night when we're back at Gateway with these PM18s. But until then, for James Watson and everybody here at the National Racing Network that makes these shows possible, my name is Chris Graham. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us, and we will talk to you all soon. Have a great night, everybody.